bad news, really, really bad news, guys. Very concerning news. 2 new studies, one more worrying than the other one. I would call them the 2 studies that are changing everything. And guys, this is so crazy because study after study has already come out in the last 1.5 years that basically tell us run. This is what I take away from it. Guys, take a coffee, because I had a lot of coffee reading through these scientific papers so that I can give you the bad news. Now, I have to say it's bad news. It's not good, because we know for decades now, basically in the last 75 years already, Campi Flegrei, translated the burning fields, have been under stress and unrest. And scientists and residents around Naples for decades now believed that they somewhat understand the burning fields, that Campi Flegrei supervolcanic caldera, this restless monstrosity of a giant underneath a city, in proximity underneath of a greater Naples area with more than 6 million people. And why this is so bad, I will, further down in the video, I will tell you about another study that tells us why the evacuation will not work. Why? Because this study tells us what's going to happen with the people in Italy if that monstrosity of a volcano even has a smaller eruption. But let's start with the studies so that you know why I am so concerned. So people thought they know, and the officials said that too. I've been reporting about this and wondering about this, and seasoned scientists did as well. INGV says, don't worry about it. It's just Bradyseism. That means just, right? What is Bradyseism? The land is rising. It's inflating because something underneath is filling up. And then we have these earthquakes that are intensifying. And then we have more gas emissions. Fumaroles getting hotter. The latest bulletin yesterday, the fumaroles, these gas emissions that you see popping up everywhere, releasing smoke, 170 degrees Celsius hot right now. They used to be like 95, 96 degrees Celsius. CO2 emissions, volcanic gases, all straight up. And the earthquakes. Basically, Campi Flegrei is in a constant earthquake swarm right now. Every day in the higher magnitude 2 pluses, sometimes 3. So I said yesterday, will we await a magnitude 4? So, story goes, yes, we understand the volcano, don't worry about it. Bradyseismic land is rising and it falls, sometimes dramatically, but the volcano never erupts. It's just steam, they said, but it's just a breathing volcano, blah, 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 blah. And now again, 2 new scientific studies, maybe the most important ever. Why do I say that? Because we're in such a stress increasing situation right now with the volcano. So we have one study that is titled Unveiling 2 Old Radiocarbon Ages at Serapeo, that's in Pozzuoli, the temple, enhances understanding of the present unrest crisis, they call it crisis, at Campi Flegrei caldera, Italy. And the second study is titled Sessolite Precipitation at the restless Campi Flegrei volcano in Italy points to hydrothermal flashing by deep boron-rich brines. Yep, there it is. Sounds really scientific and doesn't sound too bad, doesn't it? But it is bad, guys. If you read the studies and if you really read the conclusion of these studies and then you're like, whoa. So individually, each study alone is very significant. I'm just packing it in one video for you. Again, each of one significant, but together they form a chilling picture. And this is not exaggerated, guys, really not. It's a past misunderstood and a present more volatile than anyone imagined. And the past is important because that tells us what happened and what could happen again. So a past of that volcano understood can be life-altering, if you know what I mean, for an area that's so densely populated with more than 500,000 people in the direct red zone, but even more in the wider zone. And why did I say past misunderstood? This is the first important part, guys. Please listen carefully. For centuries, one site has shaped our understanding of Campi Flegrei's behavior. The ancient Roman marketplace known as the Macellum of Pozzuoli, or simply Serapeo. Because there we see these stone columns. They stand marked by boreholes. I've reported about this a week and a half ago, right? Boreholes from marine mollusks. And you might ask, okay, boreholes. This is proof that they have been underwater. That is proof that the land once sank beneath the sea before it was rising again. We know the land is rising right now. The port of Pozzuoli is dry. There's grass growing in the port. So now they have done some radiocarbon dating of these shells that did the drilling, and that dating seemed to show several gentle cycles of subsidence and uplift. So columns were underwater, then ground was rising, they were out of the water. All that happening over the last 2,000 years, and all that without an eruption. So that record that they had became the foundation of modern hazard assessments. So that raises the question, right? If that caldera has gone through multiple cycles like this without erupting, that would mean that the system could vent pressure through the hydrothermal network safely. So without eruption, pressure goes somewhere else. It's like you have a pressure cooker, the lid is sealed, and you heat it up, you give it power. But somehow it is able to create some teeny tiny holes to get rid of the pressure. So this is now the assumption, or not. But is it really like that? But it was a very comforting narrative for everyone, right? Yeah, we live right on top of a supervolcano because we were not aware that it's a volcano, right? It was like a nice rolling landscape, super fertile. Of course, volcanic ash and rocks turn very fertile after a while. So it wasn't like, oh, there's Vesuvius, the big bad guy, right? That stratovolcano. But this is such a nice area. We had military building their facilities right in the crater. So very comforting. It's not erupting. This Bradyseism is normal, right? That this is not normal. I've reported about this quite a few times. But they were up, or I have to say they are upholding that it's normal thing still. But I reported about this Campi Flegrei has not always been in a state of Bradyseism. The Bradyseism only shows up before and after eruptions. Well, we're not after, so we're before. So let's get back to that comforting narrative that is swimming around everywhere. But then in 2025, guys, this year, a geological paper by Mauro Rossi and Flora Giudice-Pietro has now overturned that theory. It's overturned. What does that mean? So the authors of the study have discovered that many of those famous radiocarbon ages were, as they put it, too old. What? You might say, what does that mean? The shells and the worm tubes, look at the columns again, that they used for dating. They have absorbed volcanic carbon dioxide from the hydrothermal system. So that is CO2 that has been circulating deep underground for thousands of years. And that old carbon has contaminated the samples, has completely misled them. So they appeared older than they actually were. You might now get a little bit of an uneasy feeling, right? So they're not that old? What does that mean? So when the contamination is corrected, the neat timeline of non-eruptive cycle is collapsing, guys. It's collapsing. It's totally wrong. So instead, and here it comes, guys, really, I say it again, listen carefully. Instead of multiple safe uplifts and subsidences, there were likely far fewer. And some coincide closely with known eruptive periods, such as the eruption of Monte Nuovo in 1538. Okay, you might say, I'm still a little bit confused. Should I be worried? I tell you, yes. And I'll explain it to you a little bit further, then you'll understand why this is so crucial. So, in other words, scientists once believed these bradyseismic episodes were harmless. Harmless ground movements, but they were not. They were probably magmatic events in disguise. The caldera was not venting safely. It was recharging. So this correction forces a complete reassessment of the hazard perception of Campi Flegrei. So the assumption that Campi Flegrei always goes up and down without erupting no longer stands. It doesn't hold up. So now everyone was hoping, we're in an uplift phase, but it'll go down, right? But it's not going down right now. So the historic precedent for safety was based on false dates. The volcano has misled them with its own carbon, so to speak. It has fooled them. It said, well, hold my beer. So this was a comforting illusion born from contaminated carbon. This changes everything. But that is just the past, and I said, we're looking at a past misunderstood, but we're also looking at a present that is more active than it looks. So add that on top of what we just learned. We might need something else than coffee, guys, or put something else in there. So while the first team was rewriting the past of Campi Flegrei, another research team was decoding the present. Basically, in the same month, the other team published their decade-long study. And the title already hints at what they found. And again, we will dissect that. The title is Sessolite Precipitation Points to Hydrothermal Flashing by Deep Boron-Rich Brines. Sessolite is the mineral that comes from boric acid. And it crystallizes when boron-rich fluids rise and suddenly flash into vapor. And that's a process that only happens when superheated brines from deep below the surface rapidly lose pressure. And why would they? They have looked at that over a time period, guys, of 10 years. They were monitoring the Solfatara Peschiarelli hydrothermal fields. The Solfatara is this, looks like a sand dune, like a hole that you have in golf courses. I'm not a golf player, so I don't know what it's called, but like a sandy area. That is the Solfatara crater where we have most of the critical earthquakes, and that is the most likely site for an eruption. And then we have the Peschiarelli hydrothermal fields that are right at the edge of that Solfatara, where we have these intense fumaroles. And I have reported about this. The Via Antignara is melting, it's bubbling, the asphalt is bubbling, they pave over it, it comes back. So the volcano is coming to the surface through infrastructure as well. So in this area, the researchers detected something. They detected increased amount of sassolite forming on fumarolic crusts and vent walls, so around these steam vents. And then they have analyzed them. So the chemical analysis showed that the boron in these minerals came from deep sourced brines. Deep sourced, okay. How deep? Close to what? So it's not coming from shallow groundwater, what many people thought. It's coming from deep down. So these brines were rising from several miles, kilometers below. Then they have mixed with steam, and then they have undergone hydrothermal flashing. That is the violent boiling that occurs when pressure drops and liquid turns instantly into gas. And here it comes, listen carefully. What does that prove or indicate? The flashing process you might already know, because you're smart, you're watching this channel on a regular basis. If not, please hype this video that the channel gets more views, and like it and subscribe. The flashing process indicates that the hydrothermal system is being injected with new fluids from the magmatic reservoir. Poof, there we have it. And as the new paper states, the sassolite precipitation at the restless Campi Flegrei volcano points to active coupling between deep boron-rich brines and the shallow hydrothermal system. They're coupling. There's still a little fog about the answer. How bad is this? Sounds kind of scientifically bad, but how bad is it, guys? Listen carefully. In simple terms, gases and fluids from the magma chamber are reaching the surface again. They're coming to the surface. The deep system down there and the surface are already connected. There's a path. It's there. That's scary, guys. Super, super scary. We know that magma always takes the way of least resistance. If there's cracked stones, it goes in there. Do I have to say more? A few weeks back, there was another study that they found basically a straw into the magma chamber. A mile-long crack that could be like a straw for the magma to come to the surface. And now we've got this study and another study, guys. Active coupling between these deep boron-rich brines and the shallow hydrothermal system, the magma chamber and the hydrothermal system. So we can say that's not a sign of dormancy at all. It's a sign of escalating unrest. Escalating. And it does escalate, right? So why are we officially still not, I don't want to say hear the truth, because these studies are out there. And we've got the INGV scientists on their own going out there, talking to the press, giving warnings, right? But still, I have a feeling that the official version from politicians, there's pressure from investors, real estate companies, is still like, let's talk about earthquakes, right? The Bradyseismic crisis. Well, call it what it is. Call it what it is. It is a volcanic crisis, period, that causes Bradyseism. So what's the connection between these two studies? Because there is one. When we put these two studies together, a pattern emerges that no single data set could reveal, guys. I'm revealing it for you. So sit down. We know the first paper corrects the perception of the past, showing us that previous ground movements were not harmless, but linked to magmatic processes. And then the second paper shows us that those same magmatic processes are active today, driving fluid ascent, boron-rich emissions, and mineral deposition to the surface. And the fumaroles are getting hotter and hotter and hotter. More fumaroles, more gas emissions. CO2 emissions in basements, in schools, in homes, people feeling dizzy, boiling roads, bubbling roads, sinkholes in roads, melting roads, steam everywhere, in car dealerships. It's crazy. So together, they outline a feedback system inside Campi Flegrei. We have magma deep below that releases gases and fluids that migrate upwards. And while they're rising, as they rise, the pressure builds under the brittle crust. Brittle crust. I told you in previous videos, that caprock layer, the lid of the pressure cooker, when there was a Bradyseismic crisis in the 1980s, it was way stronger then than it is now. It has lost a third of its strength, and we now have a way more escalating crisis than in the 1980s. In the 1980s, it was probably a magma intrusion. It didn't reach the surface. But now everything is weak, it's brittle. Constant earthquakes are making it more brittle. That's why we see the deformation. That's why we see the earthquakes. The rocks are cracking. That was happening in the past, and that is what we see right now. Bulletin just came out. Land is still rising in Pozzoli with 1.5 centimeters per month. That much per month. We're over 1.50 meters now since 2005. That pressure is fracturing the caprock layer, the lid. That opens new pathways for fluids which flash into vapor and deposit sessolite that they see. Each pulse of fluid makes the crust weaker, more fractured, and more permeable. It's getting worse and worse by the day. And therefore, the crust is more likely to fail. And we know what it means if the crust fails. So the more that system breathes, the less stable it becomes. So why is the danger higher than assumed? Let's speak about the elephant in the room. These two studies converge on one unmistakable conclusion. The risk at Campi Flegrei is higher than previously believed. Not because an eruption is imminent, but it could be. But because the fundamental safety model was completely off, wrong. Historical misdating has destroyed the illusion of harmless cycles. The caldera did not experience endless non-eruptive uplifts. Many of those were likely precursors to magmatic activity. The record that authorities have used for decades to calm the residents' fears was based on contaminated carbon data. The current hydrothermal system shows direct magmatic influence. The discovery of this sessolite from boron-rich brines proves that fluids are rising from deep beneath the magma chamber into the hydrothermal zone. This means pressure is not isolated. It's transmitted vertically through the crust from the magma up to the surface. Then we have the mechanical weakening of the crust that comes in addition, and the weakening is accelerating. Repeated uplift, repeated fracturing, fluid flashing, all degrade the integrity of the rock above the magma chamber. Even if no eruption follows immediately, each cycle includes permeability and stress concentration, lowering the threshold for failure. So past is not the future, or is it? Because the old safe bradyseismic cycles never truly existed. We can no longer rely on history to predict stability of the volcano. The volcano is not stable. The caldera has entered what scientists now call its most critical stage of unrest since the 1980s. The scientists say they're correct. Chronology enhances the understanding of the present crisis. It does. Together, these statements define a single reality that we finally have to face because there's millions of people at risk. The system is re-energizing from below and the barrier between magma and surface is weakening. I'm not saying an eruption will happen tomorrow, and neither do the scientists. But it does mean that the assumptions that are underpinning evacuation plans, building codes, and emergency response scenarios must be updated. For decades, the hazard assessments were built on the idea that Campi Flegrei could undergo cycles of inflation and deflation without eruption. The 2025 studies show that those safe cycles were geological mirages. We now understand that each uplift may represent a new pulse of magma or magmatic fluids, a new pulse. More is coming. And that these pulses can accumulate stress over time. So if that caprock layer continues to deform like it is right now and continues to fracture like it is right now, a critical threshold could be reached where the degassing alone in these fumaroles and everything can no longer relieve the pressure. And that's when the transition from hydrothermal crisis to magmatic eruption becomes possible, guys. That would have catastrophic consequences. So this is not just a warning. These studies bring us clarity to one of the world's most complex volcanoes. And there's a study out why evacuation fail before volcanic eruption, or why they are too delayed. And that is scary because for not so densely populated areas, it's not that bad. But with more than 6 million people, because trust me, if the people in the red zone start to become nervous and panic and want to get out, the rest will too. So what the study says, and think about Naples, think about these old homes, narrow roads, winding roads, no fast evacuation route, homes that will collapse before the volcano erupts because of the earthquake that will precede the volcanic eruption. A primary barrier to timely evacuation is the lack of information or knowledge on how to evacuate effectively. So people in Pozzuoli, they know they have to evacuate, but how? Individuals who feel uninformed about the evacuation process are more likely to hesitate to evacuate because they don't know where to go. And that is leading to delayed decisions that heighten the vulnerability of these people. So the study makes it clear, without clear guidance, confusion and panic may arise. And that impairs people's ability to act rationally and to act fast. So studies show when people do not recognize early warning signs of a volcanic eruption, they often misinterpret the severity of the situation, and that results in delayed or non-existent evacuation efforts. So that earthquake swarm right now, for weeks, daily rumblings, daily earthquakes. So people are used to this. Oh, another one, they're going on the street, they're worried about their homes collapsing. But which one is the one that leads to a potential phreatic eruption or volcanic eruption? People might assess that too late. And then, guys, people reacting too late is the one risk. But even if they react in time, how are they going to get out? The roads will be clogged in minutes. Nothing will move. We've seen that in Kiev when the war started. This was a 5-lane highway. It was clogged after a few hours when people were trying to get out. So now these narrow old roads with collapsed buildings. They're in panic. How are people going to get out? And the current evacuation plan, everyone goes to Via Tangenziale. Well, this is Via Tangenziale. That's the highway. Do you see all these columns and bridges? It's not updated yet. Can it ever be updated to what's coming? I'll keep you updated, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I hope I see you in the next one. Check out the videos in the end screen because lots of stuff is going on. If you click here, we might aliens that are on the way. No, really, I'm looking at a scientific analysis of what this interstellar object 3A Atlas really is. And the Semeru volcano is acting up. So guys, a lot to view, to subscribe, to hype, to join the channel, to buy me a coffee, to leave a comment, and to click the end screen. Bye.